for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev. This is Shri Hari Radha Devi Dasi from Fairfax, Virginia, Washington. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sri Radha Devi Dasi Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances, Mataji. Thank you very much for joining. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna Guru Maharaj and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kamudiki Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj, is my humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumar Dasi from
Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gauranga. All glories to the assembled devotees. Yashwati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashmati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Dandavat Pranam to you and all Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Vrinda.
Hare Krishna, Megha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Shama Gauri Devidasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna, Shama Gauri Mataji. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Padma Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Guru Maharaj. This is Radha from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna, Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for joining the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I would like to hand over this call to Tiffany Mataji for giving the brief introduction about Achintya Gopesh Prabhu ji.
Hare Krishna.
Please take over the call, Mataji.
Thank you, Padma Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we have the great pleasure of having with us Achintya Gopesh Prabhu. Achintya Gopesh Prabhuji is an initiated disciple of His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and he has been practicing Krishna consciousness for the last 21 years. As an international speaker, his discourses are effective and liked by the young and old alike. He specializes in lectures on Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's pastimes. He is an engineer and an MBA from Symbiosis International University. In his professional life, he is currently employed as a director of a Big Four consulting firm. Achintya Gopesh Prabhu additionally is a regular Mangala Arti visitor at Radha Madan Mohan Mandir, and one would find him generally preaching to the Kargar audience or congregation on any given day. Hare Krishna, welcome to the call, Prabhu. So wonderful to have your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tiffany Mataji, and thank you, everybody. This is very wonderful. Really happy to be here once again among this group, and also the privilege of speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Padma Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhu. Please take over the call, Prabhu. Today we are discussing the verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 18th verse and 14th.
Thank you,
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Padma Mataji, just a quick clarify, 5.18.4, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll start with Guru Vandana. Om Ajnanatimirānandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jayatam Surator Pango Mama Mandamater Gatihi Matsarvasvapadam Bhojo Radha Madana Mohanao Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto, where we have been discussing the entire structure of Jambu Deepa, and today we are discussing the different varshas or different segments within the Jambu Deepa, and wherein we are discussing the Bhadrashva Varsha, and we are going to look at 5.18.4. So we'll first read the verse and then try and look at some few important aspects there. So 5.18.4. Vadanti Vishwam Kavayasmanashwaram Pashyanti Chadyatma Vido Vipaschitaha Tatapi Muhyanti Tvajatma Mayaya Suvismitam Krityam Ajum Natosmitam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world and they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusionary energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusionary energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Not only does the illusionary energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but it sometimes also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the constitutional position of the material world through realization. This is one part we will look into detail, that how the advanced learned scholars who understand this material world are also influenced by the illusionary energy. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining that as soon as someone thinks I am this material body, aham mameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion caused by the material energy acts especially on the conditional soul, but it sometimes acts on the liberated souls as well. That's the second part. We will also talk about how both conditions and liberated souls are influenced and covered over by the material energy. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association of modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusion energy. And this is a very important sentence, due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. And this is another thing we will see. What is inattentiveness in the transcendental position? Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamevihi prabadyante mayam yetam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of the material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by this part, rigidly following the regulative principles. And we will also talk about this as to what is rigidly following regulative principle and how one can slip up in that. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. And this is going to be the theme of the lecture, to say how can you get yourself fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. We have already seen the example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharat. Maharaj Bharata was undoubtedly a great devotee, but he turned his attention slightly towards a deer. He had to suffer 2 more births, one as a deer and another as a Brahmana Jada Bharata. Afterwards, he was liberated and went back home, back to God. And Srila Prabhupada ends this purport with a warning. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee. But if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of illusionary energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service, then one's position is secure. So this is the purport. We will now go into the details of this and try and look at this one by one. So first, let's start from where we left off. Let me just put this up. Okay, so we are in the 5th canto, 18th chapter. We have there is a description of the entire universe, and there is a description especially of the Bhumandala, the earth plane. And I think over the last many sessions, you're looking at details of that. And then today we are looking at the Varshas within Jambu Deepa, which we'll quickly look at. And then we are talking about the Bhadrosh Varsha. So this is all, I'm sure, covered in the previous things. But as always, a few questions to start out with. Last time we discussed some of these aspects. We spoke about few reasons why we are looking at the structure of the universe, the structure of Bhumandala, and looking at these geographical and cosmological aspects, whereas Bhagavatam is a narration of the Lord's pastimes and his devotees. We mentioned a few reasons why we are looking at this cosmology plane. Anybody remembers or recollects as to why are we looking at this cosmological aspects of the universe? What is the benefit? Anybody?
To understand the greatness of the Lord, or the
greatness of the Lord. Yes, okay, that is correct. That is fine. There is no wrong answers here.
And
but
we can see how minute, minuscule we are, right, Prabhu, in front of this magnanimous creation. Yeah.
That is also another effect where we suddenly, all of us somewhere believe we are lords of everything, but once you look at the magnanimity of the universe, you understand, as to how insignificant we are. That is also correct. Any other?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the
Hare
other
Krishna.
class,
we also heard that to see how different people in different varshas are devotees and they're worshipping Supreme Personality of the Godhead. The worship is continuous and it is there everywhere around the universe.
Yes, that is a very important part of this, which is that while Bhagavatam is largely about describing the pastimes of the Lord and how the devotees of the Lord have attained the Lord's devotion and his service, one of the aspects of that is in different parts of this universe, how are devotees worshipping the Lord, and how worshipping the Lord is the central focus of this creation. So that is also something that we are elaborately seeing on this chapter. So that is true. That's also an important aspect. We also looked at a couple of other aspects. We spoke about the 10 subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we said sthanam, the places, the position of the planetary systems. So after the Lord has created the entire universe, and which is Sarga, and Visarga, which is Brahma, has created the sub-creation of different types of bodies and so on and so forth. Then how are each of those planetary systems, which are the field of activities, where are they situated, is also a part which is described. And it is also described that if one reads and understands this sthanam, can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The other reason, which is also related, in another part, in I think the 16th chapter of the same 5th canto, Parikshit Maharaj says that when I am meditating on, when you meditate on this external form of the Lord in terms of the universal form of the Lord, and how that entire structure of the universal form covers the entire universe, the mind is elevated from Rajo Guna and Tamo Guna to Sattva Guna. And once you reach the mode of goodness or Sattva Guna, you will be able to understand the Lord in Vishuddha Sattva, in a purified goodness, very easily. So that's also another reason why some of the yogis and others meditate on this particular form. But like it was said, as devotees, we are concerned with how the Lord is being worshipped in different parts of this universe. And hearing about the glories of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, in those different parts, how the devotees glorify is what we are looking at. So like we said, in the previous times, we have seen the spiritual world, the material world, how the material world, there are millions and trillions of material world coming from the pores of Mahavishnu. We looked at one material universe or Brahmanda, divided that into 14 lokas, of which the central Bhuloka, the earth plane. We are talking about the plane. We also discussed last time about the 3D version versus the 2D version and all of that. And we are focusing on this Bhuloka is divided into multiple circular islands covered by different oceans of milk, fresh water, salt water, and so on and so forth. In this part, we are looking at Jambudipa, which is the central part of the Bhuloka. And within Jambudipa, we spoke about they are divided into 9 varshas, each divided by a mountain range, and there are different rivers in each parts. And we are speaking about this varsha today, which is Bhadrashava Varsha. That's what we are looking at, I guess. And the same thing can be looked at more in detail of how the Gandhamadana mountain. So this is the central cone, which is the Meru mountain. There are 4 mountains surrounding that. And we are on this side in Bhadra Deepa. That's what we're describing today. We are actually in Bharata Kanda here. But today we are describing this particular Varsha, Bhadrasa Varsha. Right? Now, so we have, this far, I think we have got. Now, in this Bhadrasa Varsha, as you have seen in the previous 3 slokas, the Lord who is worshipped is Hayagriva. Have in the previous verses, has the pastimes of Hayagriva been covered, and who is Lord Hayagriva? Has that been described?
No, Prabhu, if you can.
Okay, so, okay, fair enough. Okay. So, in this Bhadra Varsha, the opening sloka, you're seeing Bhadrashava, who is the son of Dharmaraj. He is the one who leads the people here. He's the leader of the people here. And he is praying while Sukadeva Goswami describes each of these 9 parts. He describes who is the predominant deity or the form of the Lord there. He also describes how those people worship the Lord and how do they pray to him. And these are of great significance because the ultimate goal of Bhagavatam is to connect us to the Lord and realize his love. So in Bhadrashva Varsha, the Lord is worshipped in the form of Hayagriva. Hayagriva is described as the horse-shaped incarnation of Lord Vishnu. And he is white in color, very resplendent and white in color. And he is also the Lord of knowledge. Sorry.
Saying Hayashirsha is Hayagriva and Hayashirsha same, Prabhuji?
Yeah, Hayashirsha is and Hayagriva are the same.
Okay, thank you.
Hayashirsha is the horse-headed. Hayashirsha, Shirsha is the head. Hayashirsha is the horse-headed. And the same Lord is called Hayashirsha, is also called Hayagriva, the form of a horse, one who is resplendent like a horse. So both are the same words from that point of view. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
So, Hayashirsha or Hayagriva, the horse-headed incarnation, to understand the horse-headed incarnation, we need to understand a few things. And there is also another Hayagriva who's actually a demon. So, these pastimes can get quite mixed up. So, to explain this, we need to understand a bit of the background. The universe undergoes what is called pralaya or dissolution happens on the universe. Can anybody tell me how many types of pralaya happens? How many types of dissolution happens in the universe? Would somebody be able to elaborate?
4, Prabhu.
4? Okay, what are the 4?
Is that right, Prabhu? 4?
I mean, there are different ways to say it. There some people say 2, some people say 3. The 4th is something that I'm also trying to understand. Tell me, what are those? Let's see if we are categorizing it.
2 is very explicit, Prabhu. One is end of Brahma's day. That's one. And end of Brahma's 100 years. So those two are very clear, Prabhu.
Very clear, correct. Then what are the other 2? Okay, fair. So generally,
these called Naimittika Pralayam, right, Prabhuji?
Naimittika scheduled, yes. Okay. What else? Nitya and Naimittika.
Every day we are, Nitya Pralayam, and then our death, the final death. So that is one Pralaya.
Okay. Our death, that's from our perspective probably. Right, from a universal perspective, yes, there are different. See, actually, these 2 pralayas are the like Prabhuji said, the 2 pralayas are the most important pralaya. But let's understand it this way: the 3rd one is not actually a pralaya, but it is a changeover in a sense. So let's look at it this way: when each yuga ends, which is, so you know that there are 4 yugas: Satyuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. When the yugas end, there are some small changes which cannot be technically called pralaya, but there is some amount of dissolution. For example, when Muchukunda awoke from his meditation, Muchukunda was in the Satya Yuga. When he awoke from his meditation and he saw the Lord, he got the benediction. And when he came out of the cave, he saw that the trees have become very short and the average height has reduced, because the average height in Satya Yuga is almost, I think Dwapar Yuga is 12 feet and 18 feet, 24 feet or something like that. And in Kali Yuga it's just 6 feet. So everything appears in a miniature size. I don't know, which is why probably dinosaurs were big. But all that said and done, he sees that the entire environment and everything around him has changed and become miniature, which is why also there are very ready evidences of culture before 5,200 years, which is why modern scientists mostly peg the human evolution from 5,200 years. Whereas we know from the Vedas that there is a lot of history before that. So when each of the yugas change over, there is some changes. There is one set of changes, though I wouldn't call it a pralaya. Then again, after the 4 yugas, when the 4 yugas get over again, Satyuga comes, then there is a complete Kalki comes and vanquishes everybody, and then the other, again, reformation happens. Then what happens is these 1,000 repetitions of this Chaturyuga forms 12 hours of Brahma. And at the end of 12 hours of Brahma, this mid-pralaya happens when the entire water of this universe starts covering all the planets and sort of goes up till it starts to go from here. The Garbhodaka ocean starts to cover up, goes till this Suvarloka, Bhu Bhuvaha Suvaha, till this Loka it starts to get covered. And there is also a pralaya where you get to cover almost till Janaloka and so on and so forth. Then all the inhabitants of this place go to Brahma Loka and reside there. And then when after 12 hours of Brahma's night, when again Brahma wakes up, he again creates all of these things below and the water goes down. So that is one third pralaya. And the fourth is when 100 years of Brahma happens, when the whole universe gets destroyed and everybody gets sucked into the belly of Mahavishnu. That is Mahapralaya. Now, what we are describing here is this middle pralaya where the water starts coming up till here. Now, what happens in that particular place is that in this cycle of dissolution, there are a few things happen. First of all, this dissolution is timed by Lord Shiva, and while it is scheduled after 1,000 yugas, but the actual time is triggered by Lord Shiva depending on when he sees that the population has become, because of material enjoyment, has become very dull, and the population is not adhering to the central reason why this universe is made. Why is this universe made? What is the reason? What is the reason of having this universe, material world?
The conditioned souls to realize.
Yes, correct. The jail is there for the people who are jailed to reform and realize. Similarly, this jail of the material world is there for the conditioned souls to realize that independently enjoying is not possible. We are all parts of the same person, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we enjoy together, then we are in the spiritual world. When we enjoy separately, then we are in the material world. To curb this spirit of separate enjoyment or bhoga vancha and transform it into love or seva vancha is the purpose of this material universe. But when Lord Shiva sees that people have forgotten this purpose and they are just living their life in their own merry, then he starts the fires of dissolution and he wants to reset the universe, and at least till this plane. And when that starts to happen, generally the trigger is that there is a full of ignorance filling this material world. The material world, because people are really not interested in spirituality, they're not interested in mode of goodness, they're just enjoying, then the mode of ignorance starts to rise. So it is described that when the mode of ignorance starts to rise, and Lord Brahma, what happens when there is a lot of mode of ignorance? Generally, mode of ignorance happens towards the evening, right? Morning is Brahma Muhurta, then then you have Sattva Guna. Towards the afternoon is mode of passion, and towards the evening and towards the night becomes mode of ignorance. So that's when Lord Brahma starts to fall asleep. So his 12 hours of 1,000 Chaturyuga has happened, and he starts to fall asleep. And when he falls asleep, then this entire dissolution happens. Now, this is described that during that time, the demon Ajnana obviously means ignorance or lack of knowledge. The demon Ajnana rises from the bottom here, from the Rasatala Loka, not Patala, just here Rasatala, and he comes up, and it is described that he sees this opportunity when the Brahma is sleeping, and through the Brahma's mouth the Vedas emanate. So he captures the personified Vedas. The Vedas are also persons, like we have described in the previous discussion, how each mountain and water is a person. Captures those persons and takes them captive and takes him to Rasatal Loka. This is one pastime. This pastime happens in different ways in different Chatur-yugas, when the different dissolutions happen after 1,000 Chatur-yugas. Sometimes it is this demon Ajnana. In other times it is the demon Madhu and Kaitava. And in a different time it is another demon called Hayagriva himself. So we'll very quickly go through each of these pastimes, but the core story remains the same. The demon Ajnana goes up and captures these Vedas and brings it down to Rasatala, at which point, maybe while he's going to sleep or after he has woken up, the next, when the creation happens, Lord Brahma prays to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu's universe is obviously here, just above. Within this material world, there is an embassy of the spiritual world, which is Shveta Deepa, where the Lord lies in the milk ocean. So he comes down, or the Lord Vishnu takes an incarnation as a horse-headed incarnation, who is called Hayagriva or Hayashisha, the horse-headed person. He fights with Ajnana, kills that demon, retrieves the Vedas, and gives the Vedas back to Lord Brahma. In another pastime, he fights with Madhu and Kaitava, and he kills those demons. And that's another reason why he's called Madhusudana. There is another demon, Madhu, also. So Madhu and Kaitava he kills, and he retrieves the Vedas from him and gives it back to Lord Brahma. But in some of those dissolutions, this Hayagriva, the incarnation of Lord Hayagriva, does not appear. That the same function is done by the first incarnation in the Dashavatara, which is the Matsya Avatara, the fish-shaped incarnation. What happens there is a demon called, in this case, there is a different demon called Hayagriva. It's not same as the Lord. There is a demon called Hayagriva who is the son of Kashyapa. It is said that when the Lord gives Brahma the Vedas, Brahma takes it to Lord Shiva to discuss it with him before he starts creation or something like that. And when he comes down to Kailasha, then this demon Hayagriva snatches the Vedas and runs away with it. So when that happens, then again Lord Brahma prays to Lord Vishnu. And the first incarnation, the Lord, when he comes as the fish incarnation, and in the fish incarnation, you know that like there is the story of the Moses as well, the waters of dissolution are completely filling up the universe, and the Lord orders Manu to put one species in the boat and take all the devotees, and the Lord himself ties Vasuki to the boat, and he is carrying the entire species of the universe till the waters of resolution subside and the next creation starts. And from that creation again, all those creation happens from that point of view. At that point in time, this demon Hayagriva attacks Lord Vishnu, and this incarnation of the fish kills this demon Hayagriva and retrieves the Vedas. Which is why in this purport, you will see Srila Prabhupada has mentioned Lord Hayagriva or Lord Matsya. Matsya is the fish incarnation, will retrieve the Vedas during the time of dissolution. So I've described to you 3 different pastimes. Hayagriva killing Jnana, Hayagriva killing Madhu Kaitava, or Lord Matsya killing a demon named Hayagriva from that point of view. All of these things happen at the time of dissolution. And because this time around it is more Matsya who is killing, that is why in the Dashavatara we don't have Hayagriva. But in other yugas, in the Dashavatara is the 10 incarnations, you have Hayagriva as one of the incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Right? So in this, it is more Matsya who is glorified in this yuga, but Hayagriva is a bona fide incarnation of the Lord, to the extent that if you go to South India, there are many temples of Hayagriva. Even in Srirangam, Hayagriva is an important deity. Hayagriva has been very much worshipped by one of the acharyas and the Sampradaya that I was born in, the Sri Sampradaya. Vedanta Deshika prayed exclusively a lot to Hayagriva, and because of Lord Hayagriva's blessings, Vedanta Deshika was one of the most preeminent scholars of his time, and he defeated and established Vaishnavism over Buddhism, Jainism, and many other things which were prevalent at that point in time. And in his Dhyana Sloka, he has also glorified Lord Hayagriva. And most of the, if you go to South India, a lot of the Sri Vaishnava children are first taught the Hayagriva Sloka of Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalaspadikakritim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagriva Upasana. Adharam Sarva Vidyanam is the foundation of all knowledge, because he retrieves the knowledge, which knowledge means Veda. Veda means knowledge. Veda means to know or knowledge. He retrieves the Vedas and gives it to Brahma, due to which he is able to do creation. And in most of the temples, you will see Lord Hayagriva in the form in the right-hand side with Lakshmi Hayagriva. There is also Lakshmi Varaha, who looks very similar because of the boar-shaped this thing. But if you look closely, you will see the horse-shaped incarnation and the boar-shaped incarnation. His hands are always in the Jnana Mudra, Chin Mudra like this, and he has on his 2 other hands conch and the Sudarshan Chakra, and in one of the hands he has the books of Vedas. That's how usually Lord Hayagriva manifests. And why are we discussing about that? That is because in this Bhadrashava Varsha, Bhadrashava and his people worship Lord Hayagriva and they pray to him. That's what is established in the first 3 slokas. Now, we are going to look at what these people are praying. Before I go into that, any doubts so far? Anything we need to clarify? All good?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So now we are going to read the prayers, which is what is the 4th. So here, essentially in the prayers, they are saying that while praying to the Lord, the people are saying, Bhadrashava is saying that there are people, obviously the common people are influenced by Maya, but even learned scholars who are very much, who know this material world and who are sort of liberated, and this word has to be understood very correctly. What does liberated soul mean here? Liberated from the material world, they are also sometimes influenced by Maya. And this is your specific pastime, so I pay my obeisances and be. So essentially the prayer says that it is speaking about the power of Maya, and he says that I pay obeisances to your illusionary energy. Right? So this is what is being described. So the first question now is that what is being described here? How do you come under the influence of Maya? Right? And Srila Prabhupada explains this in the purport. So we will try to see this in detail. We have discussed in the previous times by using this example of virtual reality. We've usually used this concept of how when you wear the virtual reality glasses, you start to see a different world and you see an avatar of yourself or some avatar in this virtual world, especially when in this age of metaverses and so on and so forth. And we spoke about how this person who's actually outside the virtual world starts getting attached to one of the avatars or the virtual body within this virtual world. So actually he's outside the virtual world, but he's thinking that he is this person who's driving the car inside this virtual universe. And Srila Prabhupada says, as soon as, and this is his purport, 5.18.4, as soon as someone thinks, I am this material body, aham mameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion or moha. Moha, mohit, or to become enamored or illusioned is called moha. And this you can see here very clearly. This person, I think you can see a person sitting in the car here, right? This person is a virtual person. He's not a real person. It's a virtual. It's like our body. It is just made up of some virtual elements. This person outside is the real person. He is the soul. He is the real spiritual person. But when he wears this illusionary glasses, he starts identifying himself with this person in the car. Now, the important thing to note is that this game can be played in two ways, right? I'm just using this example. One way to play is like how the game testers play. I mean, the game testers are the people who created this game. They're testing the game. So they are never involved in the game. They know they are different. It is their job to test the game, and they just play around with the game. They are fully aware that I am not this person in this car, and he just plays the game in a very sober manner. He doesn't get very attached to the game. He just fulfills his job and gets out of it. Such a sober person, one who plays the game, but he knows that he is not part of the game, is often also called a liberated person. Mind you, he's not a pure devotee, but he is liberated in the sense that he is not attached to this person in the car. But when somebody like us buys the game, and a young guy buys this game, he's very attracted, he wants to play the game. As soon as he puts the headset, completely forgets who it is. His mom is calling him for breakfast. He just forgets it, forgets to study. He just gets involved into that game and starts playing like this guy, and the points that he's getting and he's racing against his friends and he's winning, is completely into it. He is somebody who is in moha, who's been enamored or illusioned by this personality. And he thinks he is the personality inside and driving the car. He attaches himself to the virtual body, and in that sense, he becomes conditioned. So we are like this conditioned soul, like that young guy who buys this game and starts to play. And the liberated persons are people who have sort of come out of the game, but they're still not able to get out the glass, but they are liberated in the sense that they are not influenced in thinking that I am this body, right? So this is something that has been described here. Good so far? Any questions as to who is described as liberated? Please understand, when we are talking about liberated people here, we are not talking about pure devotees who have also taken out these glasses and are back in the spiritual world and serving the Lord. We are not talking about them. The example which is given in Bhagavatam is like, if you know copra. Copra is like solidified coconut. If you pick a coconut and when it is very fresh and raw, and if you try to peel the coconut, it is very hard. The shell sticks to the inner core. You have to really spend half an hour or so to actually take the coconut out, if you look at any video on YouTube. But when the coconut becomes mature, if you just let it dry, what happens is the inner core of the coconut detaches from the shell and it is loose, right? You can just break the shell and the coconut will come out. It's loose. So if you shake the coconut, you can actually hear the inner shell going tock, 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 tock inside the coconut. That's when they know the coconut is completely dried up and it is completely mature. So it is described the liberated souls who have not got out of the coconut completely, but are detached from the shell. those are Jivan Muktas, in the sense that they are somehow either due to yogic powers or something detached, and they are still within the shell, but they are not attached to the shell. So those are the kind of people we are describing here. If you describe it in another way, the way to describe it is that this person, when he starts believing he is the person who's driving the vehicle, his consciousness starts to flow into this virtual body. He develops something called false ego. That's what Srila Prabhupada is talking about, aham mameti, that I am this body. And then he develops a material intelligence. Now that I am in this body, what should I do? How do I drive the car? What are the material intelligence? And then the mind, according to the desires, the bhogavansha, this person got into this game because he wanted to enjoy something different. That according to the bhogavansha, the mind gives different options. Oh, why don't you drive the car like this, do this, that? And according to his material mind and intelligence, he drives the car. The liberated person is one who could withdraw his consciousness from this material mind, material intelligence, material false ego, and keep it on his chitta, or the root of the mind. He can keep the consciousness focused in his heart and not let it spread out. That person who plays the game with fully controlled heart or in a sober way, without getting attached to this body or the material mind or material false ego, is called a liberated person. Right? Good so far. So how do we know whether we are liberated persons or we are conditioned persons? So how do we know that? From this definition, how can we perceive that? What's the easiest way to know? Are we conditioned or are we liberated? Anyone?
By checking our attachment to the body.
Yes, by checking our attachment to the body, correct. What else?
We have the false ego.
We have the false ego. Right. Anybody else?
Even mind also plays the tricks.
Our external circumstances have an effect on us. Whatever happens, we are affected by it, even mentally.
Correct. So very good. These 2 points that you made, very good points. Simple thing, if you're sitting to chant Hare Krishna, what happens? Are we attached to our mind or not?
Yes.
Right?
Mind plays.
Yeah. You will find that if we are going wherever our minds and thoughts travel and we are traveling with it, which means that our consciousness is attached to the mind. Right? And one who can hear the holy name, and this is what we do in chanting actually, which is called absorption in chanting. When you hear the holy name starts to, so this consciousness is now stuck with the mind. Wherever the mind goes, the consciousness will go there, right? Even if we try to stop, that is the stage of bhajana kriya. When the holy name hits, then we say, that adhesive by which the consciousness and the mind is stuck together, that adhesive comes off. Or in India, we say that Fevicol, that Fevicol ka mazboot jod comes off. The thick adhesive of Fevicol comes off, and your consciousness starts to withdraw from the mind, comes down to intelligence, Dadami Buddhi Yogam, that's spiritual intelligence, and then from the false ego, and withdraws from the false ego, is centered in the heart. Then you are sort of liberated. Sort of. Why do I say sort of? You're not completely outside this material universe, but like the coconut copra in the shell, you're detached from the shell, right? That happens at the stage of Ruchi, and we will speak about that in a minute. So here in this verse, they are saying that the Maya influences these conditioned people as well as the liberated people. How does Maya influence the conditional person? Right? It's very easy. When he is attached, when the person is attached, he or she, the soul is attached, the person has false ego. Above this layer, there are some desires. There are some anarthas. The base desire is bhogavansha, due to which he wore the glasses. If he doesn't want to enjoy, why would he wear the glasses? Bhogavansha. And the bhogavansha means the propensity to enjoy separately from Krishna. I am bhogi. I will enjoy separately from Krishna. You can enjoy. There's nothing wrong in enjoying, but you can enjoy as a part and parcel of Krishna, which is how you enjoy in the spiritual world. Here you try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And there, once you develop that false ego, I am separate, I have to enjoy. There are, depending on your activities, a layer of unwanted desires start accumulating, which is called dust. Like if we go out, naturally there'll be some dust on our body, right? Similarly, when we work with our mind and intelligence, few things go into your heart as dust. That is called anarthas, unwanted desires. And this mind starts to function as per the unwanted desires in the heart. Now, how does Maya influence? Maya has waves. What are these waves? The wave of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna, Tamo-guna. So in the morning at around 6 o'clock, the waves around you start off Sattva-guna, right? You get up in the morning and there are few things that happen there. And towards the afternoon, it becomes more of passion. And towards the evening, people start to get all these Tamo-gunita, let me go to a club, let me go to a party. There is a lot of Tamo-guna happening. Each of these waves then comes and hits into the heart. And whatever anarthas are there, it agitates some of those anarthas. If your heart is largely pure, then this wave, when it hits, there isn't much to agitate there. The receivers in the heart cannot pick up these waves. If you have a lot of Tamoguni desires, you have Tamoguni receivers, you can catch these waves very fast, and you will develop a lot of mode of ignorance desires. But if your heart is more clean, you are in the higher modes, there is nothing much for these waves to hit and get received and agitate. So generally, a conditioned person who has a lot of anarthas, he gets influenced very quickly by these waves, and he starts to develop his desires. His mind starts to give options. His intelligence is subservient to the mind, and the intelligence starts to function as to how I can fulfill these desires. Right? The person who is liberated in this sense, who has withdrawn his consciousness into the heart, when the wave comes and agitates, whatever little there is agitation, he doesn't involve himself in that. He doesn't attach himself to that. For example, a person who's soberly playing the game, suppose another car comes and dashes past this car, he's not going to duck, he's not going to cry, because he knows that's just a game, he's just playing a game. So he will sit very controlled and he will coolly play the game. But the guy who's involved, you will see him, ducking and, going, oh my God, I lost my car, and getting very stressed out and so on and so forth. So a liberated person plays this very soberly. But what does this verse say? That even those guys who are sort of containing themselves in the heart and staying there sometimes get influenced by Maya. Right? Why is that? Who can tell me why is that?
Because they're still playing the game.
They're still playing the game. Okay, fair.
They are still involved, even though if not directly, but they are still indirectly involved because they're playing, and there are chances that while playing they might forget that okay, they are just a player.
Correct. It is very much possible because they have not taken the glasses out. Why have they not taken the glasses out? Because they have not lost the Bhagavancha. Why have they not lost the Bhagavancha? Because they have not got the Seva Vancha, the actual love for God and the pleasure that comes out of serving the Lord, due to which this Bhoga, the wanting to enjoy this material world, separately goes away. Right? When I go out and do a lot of, I go to my job, I work very hard, I try to earn money, I try to accumulate things, but somebody tells me, okay, just sit tight, I'm going to invest millions of dollars in your bank account automatically. Then why would I go out and work? I'll be there. I mean, I'm automatically getting all the money. Similarly, we don't get the pleasure of serving the Lord in the heart. So we are working outside from the material things, trying to squeeze out some pleasure, from this, from the mobile, from this thing. We're trying to squeeze out some pleasure. But once you connect with the Lord in the heart, you're connected to the reservoir or to the generator. And automatically the pleasure which is enjoyed by all the living entities, a part of it comes to you. And you're automatically getting pleasure in the heart. Then such a person doesn't go out. He's naturally situated in the heart. He's very content. Mano ratne asati davato bahi. Sitting in the chariot of the mind, your consciousness does not go out, but rather stays inside. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. A liberated, this is for Miss Purport, a liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily condition of life. Mind you, he's unattached, but like Mataji said, he has still not got attached to the Lord. He's just got detached from the material world, but he's not got attached to the Lord. So he still is playing the game. The desire for Bhogavancha is still there, and sometimes he might forget. But because of the association with the modes of material nature, for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusion energy due to, this is the most important thing, inattentiveness in the transcendental position. He has done a lot of devotional or yogic activities and detached himself. But if he is inattentive, suddenly again he becomes attached, because the game which is happening is so attractive. The cars are coming. So it takes just a moment for you to get into it back again. In the third canto, it is described like a hunter who, runs behind, not like a hunter, like a person who trying to tame a wild animal. He runs all through the forest, finally catches the wild animal, puts it into a cage. But if he at any 1 second forgets to lock the cage, or for 1 second if he keeps the cage unlocked, what will happen? The wild animal will run away. Who is this wild animal Bhagavatam is talking about? Who is this wild animal Bhagavatam is?
Mind.
Anarthas.
Yeah, it's talking about the mind, which is driven by the anarthas. So we are running in this material forest, trying to catch the mind. Somehow we, bring it under control by a lot of devotional service, and we have held the mind, the consciousness, constant in the heart. But one moment of inattention, it goes away. And the example is Bharat Maharaj. He was in the stage of bhava, which is just the penultimate stage before Krishna Prem. Suddenly he got attracted to the deer. He saved the deer, that's not wrong. But then he started to develop this consciousness that I am the protector of the deer, which is Bhogavancha, that I am the protector, I am the savior, I am the enjoyer. And he started to pay more attention to the deer and reduced his devotional activities of chanting and meditating on the Lord and so on and so forth. Then there was a subtle transformation. From being a devotee who helps the deer, he became a non-devotee who's trying to protect the deer. What was that subtle change? He started out by thinking, oh, I am a devotee, I need to protect this deer. And from there, he started developing this consciousness that if I am not there, who will take care of the deer? So I need to leave my sadhana, my practices, and start to focus on the deer. And slowly he became so much attached to the deer that he was always 24 hours thinking of the deer. He became deer conscious. Where is the deer? Where is it gone? Oh, somebody has caught it. What has happened to my deer? And in that consciousness, when he died, he took the form of a deer. And why are these people in this Bharata Varsha, in this Varsha praying about this particular incident? In their case, who was influenced by Maya? Why are they praying about it? The other example of this is obviously also Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is a very elevated personality, but moments in attention when he's going to sleep, the Vedas are taken away from him. He's completely, and there are many instances where Brahma has come under illusion when during creation, he gets attracted to his own daughter and Saraswati, or he becomes illusioned spiritually when he steals the calves and the covered boys. There are many instances, but in this case, the Vedas are stolen from him. Right? But that is also the pastime of the Lord. And then he comes as Ayagriva and retrieves these Vedas from that point. So we are talking about this. Now the key question we are trying to answer in the next 10 minutes is, if we don't have to get influenced by this Maya, what should we be doing? Right? We have seen many examples. Bharat Maharaj, Saubri Muni is another example. He was meditating within the Yamuna. He was completely in trance, but he saw he was almost liberated. He saw, but he committed an offense towards Garuda, who had come there to catch a fish. He tried to curse him, and then what happened? Moment of inattention. He saw two fishes copulating, and then he started developing material lusty desires, and he went out, got married to hundreds of queens, princesses, and then later, after thousands of years, realized that he has completely wasted his entire spiritual life. And then he came back and became a devotee of the Lord. So there are many, many stories where a moment's inattention, mind you, this is not applicable to pure devotees. What's the difference? Pure devotee has not only detached himself from the screen, he has taken out this virtual reality glasses and he is completely attached back to the Lord. Or in other words, he is not just withdrawn his mind, intelligence, and consciousness into the heart, he has connected his heart to the lotus feet of the Lord. And when he does that, that's why Srila Prabhupada writes, therefore Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, Ma mevehi prabhadyante mayam etam tarantite. Only those who have surrendered unto me can overcome the influence of material energy. Not just by detaching from the material world, but attaching yourself to Krishna or surrendering yourself to Krishna. Therefore, no one should think of himself as liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following the regulative principles. So 16 rounds every day is so important. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj used to say that one who chants 64 rounds will be above the modes of material nature. But Srila Prabhupada has promised that one who chants 16 rounds, he will be protected by the Lord and he will not be influenced by Maya. So if you're not doing 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles, there is every chance that we will be again coming into this thing of Maya. If he does that and does that attentively, what happens? He will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. Now, 2 questions which are going to be the crux of this lecture, which you're going to deal with. What is the way to be securely away from being influenced by Maya? What is the position when we are securely away from the influence of Maya?
In the purport, right? It is there, right, Prabhu, in the last. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service.
Okay. One must remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. What does this mean? Okay, I'm here. How am I going to be fixed in the lotus feet of the Lord?
By chanting the Mahamantra.
I think when we have
keep on chanting and
Remembering the chapter.
sometime you will get the
following the regulative things and chanting mantra.
Okay, I chant and I'm following regulative activities.
So
when the mind is absorbed,
Mind is absorbed. Very good point. Where mind is
serving
absorbed.
the devotees
in the lotus feet. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good point. I'll come back to that. Okay, what else? Okay, by chanting, by following serving the devotees, following the regulative principles. You're absolutely correct. But okay, I'm doing all of that. Where is the lotus feet of the Lord? Am I attached to the lotus feet of the Lord?
No.
Feet of the Lord means service, right?
Okay.
You have to have a mood of dependence. Like I need the Lord. I and only the Lord. He's my only shelter. That attitude.
Yes, that attitude is Sharanagati. You're very correct. the mood of dependence of the Rakshaishyati iti Vishwaso Gopatratve Varnam Tata, that mood of complete dependence on the Lord gets you to the lotus feet of the Lord. That is correct. What else?
Shravanam also will help.
Shravanam will also help. Shravanam will make the
By
consciousness.
praying to Krishna, Guru and Gauranitai Mercy. By
Yeah.
praying to them.
Yeah. So let me ask this question.
Constant remembering Krishna.
Constantly remembering Krishna. Yes, that's correct. Let me ask this question differently. In another place, there's a conversation, right? A devotee asks Srila Prabhupada that, I'm disturbed by these lusty desires, and, I'm getting disturbed in my sadhana. And somewhere, I don't remember which conversation is that, but Srila Prabhupada replies, cling on tightly to the lotus feet of Krishna and you will be saved. Right? If you don't cling on tightly to the lotus feet of Krishna, then you will be swept in. Something like that, right? So how do I cling on to the lotus feet of Krishna? Where is it? You tell me to cling on to something, I can just hold it, cling on. But how do I cling on to lotus feet of Krishna?
Being attached to Guru?
That's the external way of doing that. That is correct. Being attached to Guru.
Do everything to please Krishna.
Correct. I mean, this is not wrong, but I'm trying to wait for an answer which perceptibly understands what does it mean to be clinging onto the lotus feet of Krishna.
Following all instructions.
Sorry?
Following instructions, all instructions.
Yes, that is correct. That's the external manifestation of that.
Reading Srimad daily.
Reading Srimad Bhagavatam. These are ways and means by which you can do that.
I think as Mataji told, right, surrendering to the Lord, because He is the only shelter. There is nothing else, and depending on Him. And I think for all this chanting in that mode, and crying for Him, you're only the shelter, and please help me to be situated in the lotus feet of Lord for thing.
Absolutely right. And in fact, everything that some of you people have said, and especially that comment about absorbing and meditating on the Lord is very correct. I think everything that you've said is correct. Now, because we have been in the moment, we have heard a lot of these things. Now, let's try and assimilate what is there and what is Prabhupada trying to say when he says that, remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay, let's start with this. Who are we? We are the soul, right? So what this person who is a liberated person has done, he has withdrawn his consciousness. Consciousness is the current of the soul, right? Like you have battery on the mobile and the current spreads everywhere, or you have a generator and the current spreads everywhere. The soul is in the heart, but the current or the consciousness spreads everywhere, and the consciousness gets polluted and keeps on drifting away with the mind and all of that. We described how this liberated person is withdrawing and sitting in the heart. We've understood so far, right? Withdrawing the consciousness back to the heart and not letting it drift. Or in other words, if you talk about it in the times of the player, he's withdrawing it from the screen, from this person, and coming out of it, right? He's in the heart. But we said just being in the heart is not a secure position, because anytime you can get vapas, you can again get attracted back into the game. Arudhyagachena param padam tata. Even if you climb up to the ultimate stage of liberation, patanti yada, you will again fall down, because na angushim angrim, because you have got away from the game, but you're not got attached to angrim, the lotus feet of the Lord. What does that mean? Once you withdraw your consciousness completely into the heart, which is also done by chanting and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'll come to how that happens. Then the next stage is, if you keep on the consciousness right in your heart, then the password to this game emerges. The password is not just Hare Krishna. The image password of this game is in the heart. You will start seeing the form of the Lord. The form of the Lord is sitting in the heart. Behind the soul, there is super soul, which is the 400 form of the Lord. And behind the source of the 400 form is Krishna, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, two-handed. So for a moment, let's speak about the 400 form of the Lord. We are called Bahir Mukha. Bahir Mukha means we are focused outwardly towards this game. I have withdrawn, please try and understand this. We have withdrawn from the game. Now I have situated here. Now I am turning back. And when I turn back, what do I see? Behind me is the 400 form of the Lord. Or Chandogya Upanishad describes two parrots are sitting in the tree. One is the super soul, one is the soul. The soul is constantly eating the fruits. When it stops eating the fruits and turns back towards his friend, Paramatma, he can see the Lord. The first aspect of turning back, when he starts to turn back, what happens? Like we say, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena, Santaha Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti, Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Surupam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is the ultimate realization of Shama Sundara when your eyes are anointed with love. But before that stage, it is said, Dhyanavastita Tadgadena Manasa Pashyantiyam Yoginau. Dhyana Avastha, in the meditative post, Dhyana Avastita Tadgatena Manasa, when the mind is going towards him, Pashyantiyam Yoginau, the yogis see. What do they see? The Lord in the heart. And that's how the Bhagavatam describes the super soul. And you don't see the super soul fully at first. You first see the lotus feet of the Lord. And in the heart, the lotus feet of the Lord appears in a lotus flower. And the feet are visible. And when you see that feet, let's talk about the feet of Krishna, not just about the feet of the super soul. For a devotee, he doesn't see just the super soul. He sees Krishna in the heart in the Tribhanga form, in the three-bended form, right? That is what devotees will see. Yogis can see the super soul and so on and so forth. Of course, devotees also quickly see the super soul in Nishta stage, and in Ruchi they see the lotus feet of Krishna. When you see the lotus feet of Krishna, what happens? The mind becomes supremely attracted. It was attracted to everything outside. The consciousness now is withdrawn. Once the lotus feet of the Lord is seen, you start getting attracted to that. That's what Rupa Goswami sings. Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Mama Manasa Madhukara Arpita Nija Pada Pankajama Karande Deva Bhavantam Vande. Rupa Goswami sings Deva Bhavantam, and he sings for Krishna. So Deva, I bow down to you. Mama Manasa Madhukara, the bee of my mind, the honey bee of my mind, Mama Manasa Madhukara, Arpita Nijapada, I offer my bee of my mind onto your lotus feet, Manasa Madhukara, Arpita Nijapada, Pankaja Makarande. Like a bee gets attracted into the lotus flower. What happens is the bee gets attracted to the lotus flower, starts to drink the nectar. It completely forgets which is the day or the night. The lotus flower completely shuts on it, but the bee still doesn't come out. It stays inside the flower. Right? Like that, let the bee of my mind be attracted to the lotus feet which I am seeing in the heart. Mama Manasa Madhukara Arpita Nijapada Pankajama Karandi. Right? And this is the same thing that Kulashekara Alvar says, that Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam Advaiva Me Vishatu Manasa Raja Hamsam Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavada Pittai Kanthavarudana Madhau Smaranam Kutaste. When I'm going to die, my entire throat is going to be choked with Kapavada and Pitta. My consciousness is not going to be clear for me to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. So let me not wait till the time I will die. Today itself, Mama Manasa Raja Hamsa, my swan of my mind, he describes the mind as a swan. Rupa Goswami is describing it as a bee. The swan of my mind enter the lotus of your feet. That's why the saints and the gurus are called Paramahamsa. Hamsa means a swan. Paramahamsa. Hamsa means, you know what a swan does? The first quality of a swan is if you mix some milk and water, it will just take the milk and the water will remain. So the Hamsa is like that. Paramahamsa, they can take the spiritual thing out of the material world and leave the material thing out. That is one. The second quality is the swan, it wants to eat the pollen stem of the lotus flower. So the swan puts his neck fully deep into the lotus flower and keeps going deeper. It reaches the stalk of the lotus and tries to get the pollen from there. So similarly, the saints who are Paramahamsa, they put the swan of their mind completely into the lotus feet of the Lord. So they have withdrawn their consciousness. They can now see the lotus feet of the Lord, and initially they start getting attracted and they completely go into the lotus feet of the Lord, and their mind completely, their consciousness completely stays in that lotus feet. And that is called, what is that called in Prabhupada's words? Sorry?
Ruchi.
Ruchi, yes, that's a stage of Ruchi. When you start getting attracted, or in Srila Prabhupada's words, clinging on to the lotus feet of the Lord. Your consciousness and your mind, because your consciousness and mind goes with it, consciousness is completely fixed up on the lotus feet of the Lord. That particular person plays the game in a completely different way. He's not just detached, but he's already attached to the lotus feet, and he's attached to the lotus feet, and he's playing this game as a service and not because he wants to enjoy it. And he will never get attracted by Maya. Why is that? Why is that he will never get attracted by Maya?
He's already deeply invested, right, Prabhu?
Yes. He is getting his madhu, his honey from the lotus feet already. He's getting his enjoyment. And that is a superior form of enjoyment to this material world where there is hardly a drop of taste. This is an ocean of taste. It is called ecstasy, unmad. So ocean of taste is flooding his heart. And so a drop cannot attract him when he's already flooded, right? And that is a secure position when Maya cannot attract him. So the Mayavadis and the yogis, they detach, but they don't attach to Yushmam Angrim. Bhagavatam says, because you're not attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, you will patanti ada, you will again fall down. And Srila Prabhupada writes it again and again. The Mayavadis and the yogis again fall down to this material world because they can get again snared by Maya. That's what he writes. Whereas a devotee, because he is getting the honey from the lotus feet of the Lord, he starts getting, that is Ruchi. And that happens because the first rays of Ahladini Shakti of Radharani starts to enter him because he's meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. That's a different subject matter. We'll go to that. And when he becomes completely enamored, that Ruchi turns into Asakti. And I've said this many times. What is the difference between Bhajana Kriya, which is the third stage when you're chanting, and Asakti, which is the sixth stage, or the sixth Nishtha, Anarthanavarti, Nishtha, Ruchi, seventh stage, I don't know, maybe sixth stage. What is the difference? The difference is in Bhajana Kriya, when you chant, the mind will and the consciousness will go out into material things and start remembering material things. And you'll have to forcibly bring it back. That's why it is called Vaidhi Bhakti. By rules, we're trying and trying and trying. But in Asakti, even if you're doing some material thing, like Mukund Dutt used to go out, he was giving the medicine to the king, and they were doing this chamar, and they removed it and then started doing the chamar with the peacock feathers to the king. When he saw that, when he saw the peacock feather, suddenly his consciousness withdrew back. He started remembering the Lord. He fainted and fell down the stairs from the king. The king came rushing and said, "What happened to you?" They woke him up with water. And Mukund Dutt did not want to say, "I am in Asakti, in Bhava." He just said, "Oh, I have this epilepsy problem." The king said, "Don't fool me. I know the difference between epilepsy. I'm not a doctor, but I know what's epilepsy and I know what is absorption in the Lord. You are now granted leave. Your salary is doubled. You don't have to come to work. You just sit at home and meditate on the Lord, right?" So what happens is, even when you are looking at external material things, you start remembering the Lord and go deep into the heart. That is Asakti, because he's already pretty much hooked on in the heart. Whereas in Bhajana Kriya, the usual stage that most of us are, even when we are trying to go into the heart, we get pushed out into the material thing because the fire of desires is there. So what's the most secure position for a devotee? Remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create or in other words, here is the lotus feet of the Lord on the lotus flower in the heart. And this is something that is practically visible. This is not some theory, right? And to do that, when you chant, first it hits the mind, the consciousness withdrawn to the intelligence, the false ego, then onto the chitta, and you keep on hearing at the stage of nishta, then ruchi happens, then you see the lotus feet of the Lord. Or in other words, the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is conceived like this. What is the lotus feet of the Lord? Which cantos are the lotus feet of the Lord in Srimad Bhagavatam?
1 and 2.
1 and 2. Yeah, so after 1 and 2, we should actually be seeing, if somebody has heard Srimad Bhagavatam 1 and 2 very nicely, automatically the lotus feet of the Lord will be chiseled in his heart and it will manifest in the heart. Of course, it doesn't happen to me. I don't know for how many people it has happened, but the point is, the more and more you become purified, I can say with practical experience, at least you start to get the feeling that the lotus feet will manifest in the heart. You almost can feel that is going to happen, even though you might not have seen it completely from that point of view, right? So to do that, you need to withdraw your consciousness right into the heart, and that is the stage of bhajana kriya, going on to anartha nivarti, onto nishta and ruchi, right? So that's what these people are playing, and Prabhupada is saying the Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if the devotee takes advantage of Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of illusion and energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Veda is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. Again, the last sentence. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service, then one's position is secure. It's also not possible to see the lotus feet of the Lord by some yogic technique. You can see the Paramatma, but you cannot see the Lord. You cannot see Lord Krishna's lotus feet. That's only Bhaktyamam Abhijananti Yavam Yaschanchi Tattvata Tato Mam Tattvato Jnatva Vishate Tat Anantaram. Then he enters. Once he knows me factually, to know him factually, he must see the lotus feet of the Lord. Now, the last thing that remains, last question that remains. What's the last question? We have seen so far that the people of the Bhadravarsha are praying that even the liberated souls can get influenced by Maya. We talked about how you get influenced by Maya, and they are praying to Lord Hayagriva. And we talked about Hayagriva being the source of knowledge. We spoke about what does it mean to be influenced by Maya. We also spoke about how you can remain aloof from the influence of Maya, but by attaching yourself to the lotus feet of the Lord. That happens in Ruchi. And when you stick to the lotus feet of the Lord, then we are, completely secure. Then one's position is secure. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes. Now we are in which position? Are we in secure position? Which position are we in here? Secure, insecure?
Secure.
Insecure.
Insecure.
Okay. Those who are saying insecure, why are we saying we are in insecure position?
Because we have not developed the ruchi.
Yes, we have not developed ruchi. Very clear. Correct. Simple answer. We are not seeing constantly the lotus feet of the Lord in our heart practically. Right? In one way, we are slightly secure. See, there are two manifestations. The internal manifestation of this is that you are seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the external manifestation of this? So even Arjuna was told not to just sit and meditate on the lotus feet. He was told to fight. But how was he told to fight? Mam anusmara. Yes, very correct. Yeah. Come again.
Mam anusmara yudhyacha.
Mam anusmara.
Mano buddhir.
Mayo arpita mano buddhir. By putting the mind and intelligence completely in me, seeing my lotus feet, and when you're relishing my lotus feet and my entire darshan in the heart, what do? then you cut the other person's throat. My God, that's a difficult one, right? You can either be absorbed in the lotus feet, or you can be fighting outside. But to be absorbed and fight, that's why Arjuna's position is topmost of yoga, right? Completely absorbed in devotional service. So the external manifestation of that is that we are following Guru's orders, as somebody said, following in the footsteps of Guru, attached to Guru, following the instructions of Guru is the external manifestation of serving the lotus feet, because falling at the lotus feet means surrendering. If I fall at somebody's lotus feet, I'm surrendered to him. It also means whatever you say, I will obey, or in other words, I will serve your desires, or in another manner, my pleasure is in serving you. That is surrender, right? So the external manifestation of that is serving the orders of Guru. And the internal manifestation of that is that you can see the lotus feet of the Lord, and both happen simultaneously. If you're really, your life is dedicated to serving the Guru, you can see the lotus feet of the heart, in the heart. As Srila Prabhupada used to say, my Guru is always with me in my heart. And not even a moment I am separated from him. Because his entire life was to, at that point in time, serve the orders of his spiritual master, His Holiness Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami. So now, the only question that remains is, if we are insecure because we are not in Ruchi, what is that we need to do? We need to reach Ruchi, right? And we are somewhere in Bhajana Kriya or Sadhu Sangha. We are either initiated and chanting, or we are just associating with devotees. We are chanting, and some anartha-nivarti is happening if we are really chanting attentively from that point of view. But we have not reached Ruchi. So what's the question? How do we reach Ruchi, right? That's the important question, correct?
Yes.
Right. Now, while that's a big topic and I don't want to start it now, I'll just, in a very brief manner, just probably give the sutra to reach Ruchi, by giving this and this other example. One of these days, we meet a lot of people, especially if you go to a wedding or a party or a social function, you meet a lot of different people, right? And there are a few people who are completely absorbed in what they do. Like there are guys who are absorbed in the stock market, and you meet them in a wedding or something like that. Those guys will talk to you. They'll say, hey, where are you from? What do you do? Which company do you, and in the second or third question, he will say, which company do you work for, or what do you do? If you say, hey, what, I'm working for what? Microsoft. They say, Microsoft? Oh, the shares of Microsoft are going down. What's happening? What's the problem there? Something happening in that company, and so on and so forth. So by the second or the third question, he will come to the stock market. No matter where he is, whether he's in a wedding, he's in a party, just going out with his kids, or whatever he's doing, his conversation will quickly come back to the stock market, because he's completely in the heart wanting to get more money. His whole consciousness is on the fact that he is invested in some stocks, and those are going up and down. And his entire mind and intelligence focused on the fact is, how do I make more money from the stock market? Same thing happens to politicians. If you call some of the politicians to inaugurate, we call them for Janmashtami and all of that, they will come here. They will say, oh, this is very nice. All of you are congregated here to celebrate the festival of Lord Krishna. And there are such wonderful arrangements. And you know what? Our government has made so many arrangements for this. We made the road, we made this, we made that. And our government is great, but the opposition is not doing anything. So you should vote for me and all. Quickly, he will come back to his topic of absorption, which is politics, right? Now, how did these guys get this level of consciousness being absorbed in the stock market or in politics or anything for that matter? How did they achieve that?
Being attached to it.
Continuous contemplation, Prabhuji.
Very nice. Continuous contemplation. Very good.
Ruchi.
That's a taste that they developed by continuous contemplation, correct? Anything else?
It's their desire, Prabhu.
First it is their desire to engage there. It's a desire to earn money. Yeah.
Prabhuji, they see their self-interest, that their interest is served, because that is their only interest in life. So if we think that we are very basically selfish. So if we think that our self-interest is served, we are willing to do everything. So I think this.
And that's what Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada has said our self-interest only, and then he uses the word O-N-L-Y only. Should be chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, reading Bhagavatam, and going back to Godhead, and engaging your mind, your soul, and all your senses towards that purpose. No other purpose should be for you to live and survive in this world. Only that purpose. That's Srila
Only that
Prabhupada's
purpose.
word.
That's what Prabhupada said. That's Nishtha. When you're steady, that my only purpose in life, or in other words, Srila Prabhupada used to quote the Shastras and say, Nate vidhum swartagatim hi vishnum. Nate vidhum, they don't know. Swartagatim, swartha, which is selfish. Their selfish interest should be in serving Vishnu. The actual selfish interest should be in serving Vishnu. And if they do, then, but that's Nishtha, but we have not reached there. Which is why, so very correct. There are people desired and they had contemplated on that desire. And by contemplation, they developed, and that's there in Bhagavad Gita, right? You first contemplate on that object. By contemplation, you develop desire, and then from desire, buddhinasha, pranatshati, the intelligence get covered, and then you fall down, right? Now, if you use the reverse method, see, the mind and intelligence is like a straw. If you apply mind and intelligence slightly, nothing happens. Like, you go to a movie and you're not interested in the movie, you just keep fiddling on your phone. You don't know what's happening. That never gets you into you. But the moment you start applying your mind and intelligence and start getting absorbed in it, suddenly what happens? You start feeling the movie in your heart. If there is emotions going on, you feel emotion. If there is a fight going on, you feel the fight. You get invested in the movie. That's because look at this mind and intelligence like a straw. You put the straw in and start to suck in, it will suck the juice. Or in other words, it will start taking the juice, or the word for juice in Sanskrit, rasa. Rasa is also mellow, it's also the juice. You start sucking in the rasa. So if you put your mind and intelligence in a material activity, you will get material rasa that will go into the heart and become a dust called anartha. But the same absorption, if you use it in devotional service, the same activity of chanting, you start hearing the first Hare, and start going from attention to absorption, which is the second level of chanting. Or Bhagavatam, you hear attentively with your mind and intelligence fixed, which is why we keep asking questions, to keep your intelligence back on the thing. If you hear attentively, then you start taking in the spiritual rasa. And when the rasa goes into the heart, when the heart starts getting spiritual rasa, then it is easier for the mind to get absorbed in that rasa, because inside there is something, there is a good thing, it's easier to go to a lecture where there is a lot of prasadam at the end of it, because there is some rasa at the end of that. Even if you don't like the lecture, you can have a lot of prasad, right? So there is rasa going into the heart. And more rasa goes into the heart, you'll start getting more cleaned. Even more rasa goes into the heart, you'll start become fixed up, because there is already pleasure inside. You don't have to keep running outside. So it becomes nishtha, you become steady. And even more pleasure comes to the heart, you get into ruchi, and your mind will start. This is the mind, suppose it starts going outside. Okay, where is this? Start going outside. And when in ruchi, it starts going inside. Start going inside. Rather than going like this, it starts going inside. And when it starts going inside, then you see the lotus feet of the Lord. So in short, and this is a very long lecture on how to get from bhajana kriya to nishtha and anruchi, the simplest thing is to get absorbed in the devotional activities we are doing, and do it with a lot of attention. What are the practical ways of doing this? The practical ways of doing it is a retreat, and I found that to be the biggest game changers in ISKCON. If you go to a Govardhan retreat or a Japa retreat, where 7 days you are in the foothills of Govardhan, and you have no other job but to chant, hear lectures, have prasadam. Chant, hear lectures, have prasadam, serve devotees. Chant, hear lectures, have prasadam. When you do for 7 days, it gets condensed and it then starts to go into the heart. So retreat is a very practical way of doing that. Whether you do it in India or whether you do it in some other place, in New Vrindavan, in the United States or wherever, try and go for some retreats where there are very senior devotees who are, there and doing katha. That's a very easy way of doing that. The other way is, like we said, externally pick up some responsibility. Going to the temple and serving prasadam whenever you can is good. But if you take a responsibility, I'm going to organize this, or I'm going to be responsible for this, I'm going to be managing this in Krishna consciousness, our false ego is so tuned that if I take a responsibility, then, for example, I give this example. Some of the Matajis or Prabhujis even take the responsibility of saying, day after tomorrow is festival, we are going to cook the chapan bhog. The moment they take the responsibility for 56 items to be cooked, or 1,008 items to be cooked, 3 days, 4 days before they have to plan, their entire mind and consciousness, okay, what are the items that you're going to make? What is that you're going to make? Where are we going to purchase this? How are we going to collect funds? How are we going to set up the kitchen? Who's going to do what? Who's going to come in which time? It gets completely starting to get absorbed in that activity because our false ego is, I'm responsible. I don't want somebody to come and blame me. Okay, this is not tasting good, right? So the second practical, first is retreat. Second practical way is take up some responsible service. That's the easiest way to trick yourself to sort of start getting absorbed. Third way is obviously contemplation. Read Bhagavatam and then contemplate. Even on this lecture, what was said? How do I see the lotus feet of the Lord? What was being said? What is this contemplation on, or even the pastimes of the Lord? How did Krishna save the gopis, the Govardhan pastime, contemplation. That's what Govardhan retreat is about. Katha, Japa retreat is about chanting. Contemplate again and again. By him contemplating on the stock market again and again, his consciousness got completely absorbed. Or in other words, his consciousness is like a sponge. When you put it into the water, it starts to absorb. And manan or contemplation is like that. The more you contemplate, it completely absorbs the rasa, makes it easier for you to get to Nishtha and Ruchi, right? So internally, contemplating and hearing with attention, externally taking up responsibilities, going to retreats can do both, taking up responsibility and or serving your guru, both physically and the Vani, for at least 3-4 days when he comes to your town. Try and associate more, serve, please the guru. These are all fantastic ways of getting the grace. And only by the mercy can we quickly go from Anartha Nivarti to Nishtha to Ruchi. But the fundamental of that is to use your mind and intelligence as a straw and absorb it in the devotional service. Because most of us are doing devotional service, but are doing it in a very comfortable way. Comfortable in the sense we might be sitting there and doing it, but our mind and intelligence is not completely absorbed in it. Anartha Nivarti is not happening fast. We are not getting the rasa, the taste, and hence we are not going to go to Nishtha and Ruchi. So this particular verse is praying to the Lord that let us not be in this middle stage where we can get easily attracted by Maya, but rather we bow down to the Lord. And like Srila Prabhupada is saying, get into a secure position. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Thus, one's position is secure. Hare Krishna. Sorry for the long lecture, but just wanted to get through this. Thank you. If anybody has questions, I see one hand up. Anuradha
Very
Devi.
beautiful class, Prabhuji. Very nicely spoken.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhu. Again, have to listen to it to contemplate also, Prabhu. So very, very grateful. Prabhu, the picture that you showed of subtle body, that picture is like, it's a very basic question. Like the soul is next to the, if I remember, false ego. Like right after false ego, the soul is there, right? The colorful picture of a body you were showing.
Yes.
But if we read Bhagavad Gita 3:40, Srila Prabhupada clearly says in the purport that intelligence is the very next door neighbor of soul. So
Correct.
then, so can you please reconcile that picture and the purport for me, Prabhu? Thank you.
Correct. So intelligence is the next door neighbor of the soul, and here it is false ego is being shown. So how do you reconcile both? Obviously, false ego is this perception that I am the body. False ego is not a faculty, in the sense that, like, you can use your mind, you can use your intelligence, or you can use your senses. These are faculties. False ego is not a faculty. It is the moha, or the attachment that I am this body, the feeling that I am this body, or we say that it is the adhesive of Fevicol which makes you believe, which makes you stick to the body. So in that sense, you need not show false ego separately. It's part of that soul's understanding that it is a body. Apart from the soul, the next faculty which is nearest to it is material intelligence. So in that sense, what Srila Prabhupada is saying is that intelligence is the next door neighbor to the soul. But in this picture, we have shown false ego as a separate thing, just to sort of show that it is the covering on the soul from that point of view. But otherwise, it's not a different faculty from that point of view.
So Prabhu, can we take, yes, Prabhu, that completely makes sense. So can we think it like how the soul has the consciousness? So like that way, can we think it that way?
The soul, okay, fair question. Soul is the consciousness is part of the soul. It's a natural, it's the current from the soul, right? Whereas false ego is an illusion or moha. Suppose I think I am this body, or suppose I think that I am this person, like we said in that I am the person standing on the mountain. That feeling is not inherent to the soul. That feeling is something that I have falsely assumed. Like I go to a desert, I see a mirage, I feel that there is water. That misunderstanding is false ego. Whereas consciousness is inherent part of the soul, right? It's a constitution of the soul from that point. But the misunderstanding is what is called false ego. And from that, or let's use this example of the car. The car has faculties like the steering, the brake, the accelerator. Those are like intelligence, senses, and the mind. Those are faculties. And then I am the driver, and I have some consciousness. Those are my inherent skills. In between both of this, assuming that I am the driver of this car, while this car is not mine, the car belongs to somebody else. If I assume that I am the driver of this car, that assumption is false ego. That has nothing to do with the steering. That has nothing to do with me and my skills, which is soul and consciousness. This is a misimpression or a misunderstanding that we believe in. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, but in that case, then consciousness also becomes a faculty.
Consciousness is an inherent part of the soul. It is a faculty which can either get influenced by material or spiritual. The difference here, just to go back to that false ego example, it comes from the avartatmika shakti of Maya. First, Maya covers up your spiritual intelligence, that actually I am a spiritual person, I am such and such, sambandha with the Lord, I am either a Gopa or a Gopi. All that is covered up. And then the Prakshatmika throws you into the material, world by making you believe that you are a certain person or a certain body. So that false ego comes from that covering aspect of Maya, whereas the consciousness is inherent part of the soul.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very, very beautiful. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Sureshwar Prabhu. Somebody else raising their hand.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Very enlightening class, full attraction. Thank you, Prabhu. So thank you for clarifying, Prabhu. When you said Haigriva, I was like, I didn't knew they were both the same. Thank you, Prabhu. And for that initial pastimes where you connected the three different ways how the Lord manifests to protect the Vedas. So Prabhu, one question I have, in the purport when it says liberated soul, can we say they are on the Brahma Bhuta platform? Is that connection right?
Yeah, that is correct. That's broadly right. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kamshati samas sarvet bhuteshu. But the next part of Mad Bhakti Labate Param has not happened. They have, like the classic verse to read that is Arudi Kachena Param Padam Tada. They've gone to that boundary where they have detached from the material illusion, but they are not attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. Yes, that is correct. Brahma
Okay,
Bhuta.
I think the Lord says somewhere Brahma Nirvanam, right?
Yeah.
Nirvanam, where they are detached from material world, but not.
Correct. And in that stage, there are some people who want to just get merged into Brahman, which Vaishnavas don't consider as full liberation, but those are called Brahmavadis or Mayavadis. Some people just want to see the super soul. Those are yogis, but the devotees aim to be attracted to the lotus feet of the Lord.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, one question I had, this one. When Vedas were stolen, right, that time the Vedas were all in oral form, right, Prabhu? They are not in a physical form, right? What do you mean by they are stolen, Prabhu, that time?
It's a subject in itself. Now,
okay.
In short, in brief, Vedas are in the subtle form. Let's say this. How much ever I try and tell you, Prabhu, you are not the body, you are the soul. I'm actually speaking from the Vedas, right? But it might affect your intelligence. Yeah, it might say, yeah, I'm not the body, I'm the soul. It cannot go into your heart, touch the soul, and remove the coverings from there. That needs the potency of the sound, right? When I use the potency of the sound of Vedas and speak here, Aditya Varnam Tamasastu Pare Indriyani Rupam. When I use that meter, if you just listen, you don't have to do anything. It just goes in and clears your heart. That potency of the Vedas is there in the subtle form, right?
Oh.
Now, there are two manifestations of that. If you go even more subtle, you will see the personality of the Vedas, right? Now, when the Vedas are stolen, means this sound has potency because it is emanating from the Lord and it is spoken into the heart of Brahma, right? And from the heart of Brahma, it emanates, right? So I'll use one more example. Suppose I've gone to Gurukul and learned these Vedas, right? What I've done is I have invested these potencies into my heart, right? Now, when I speak, when I do a yagna, if I chant the mantra, I mean, not I, but I'm using this as an example. If somebody who's gone to Gurukula, he has the potency, he chants, he can invoke, right? But if he starts to indulge in non-Brahminical activities and breaks the regulative principle, his potency of chanting that mantra goes away, right? That potency is stolen. So when ajnana, ignorance increases and Brahma is inattentive, he is yawning, right? That potency is stolen by the demon. And the more subtle manifestation is the four personalities, the four Vedas are captured by him. By the same subtle, the demons can use mantras to capture, right? They capture and they take him down, right? So when the Lord comes, he frees this thing and reinvests the potencies through the years back to Brahma. Then Brahma can say something and create. The point is, how do I create? I don't create by doing some program or something. They chant mantras and create, right? But if that potency is stolen, he cannot create unless it is reinvested back into him, right? Now, that's what it means. And that's why the 87th chapter, the last chapter of the 10th canto, is the personified Vedas glorifying the Lord. When the Vedas themselves, who are persons, after having delivered so many souls, they understand the ultimate thing of our existence is to love Krishna. So in the last chapter, they glorify Krishna, and in the next manifestation, they become gopis and enter the pastimes of Krishna as Srutichari gopis, right? So the Vedas are actually persons. So stolen in two ways: the potency taken away by subtle mantra, and the personalities being captured by subtle powers are both how they are stolen. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu. A very, very nice class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna Dandavat.
Thank you. I am just going to continue with questions. Somebody want to drop off, please feel free, because there are more questions. But I would completely appreciate the time is exceeded. So if somebody wants to drop off, please go ahead. Gail Prabhuji, Mataji, I don't know, Gail.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
I just want to confirm my understanding. Well, actually, I need clarification. When we were saying what it means to cling to the feet of the Lord, I think you were saying that a person who is clinging to his feet, they're doing so because they're actually seeing his feet in his heart.
Yes, and his consciousness is absorbed in the lotus feet of the Lord, and that absorption only happens because of love. So he has the preliminary qualities of love called ruchi or taste. So he is actually seeing the lotus feet, and he is also, his mind is getting constantly attracted back to the lotus feet from that. Like if you fall in love with somebody, their face keeps coming back to you, but in this case, the lotus feet is so attractive that your mind keeps going back. Yes, they are seeing the lotus feet.
Okay, so I thought that we wouldn't actually see any part of the Lord until at least Bhava, And so I'm surprised that we would be able to see his lotus feet at the stage of Ruchi.
Okay. I would probably submit that again. My understanding from whatever I have read, and obviously these are things beyond my stage of realization, so I could be wrong. But my understanding from, if you read the poems of Sikshashtakam, it is very clear that surrender happens at the stage of Ruchi. And the first rays of Ahladini Shakti starts to come till the stage of Nishta, and Ruchi is the laying the stage, and then the Lord starts to enter the heart. And the Lord becomes fully manifested in Asakti. You still see more of the Lord, and it becomes fully manifested in Bhava. But the specific stage of Bhava is you start developing a relationship, a particular Bhava or a particular relationship with the Lord. And you only develop a relationship when you're already seeing him. That's when you develop that relationship. So my understanding is you start seeing the lotus feet of the Lord, and he completely manifests in Bhava and starts to develop you start to develop a relationship, and that relationship becomes very intense, and then you get to Krishna Prema. From there, you develop a Siddha Deha, and then you start entering into the meditation of the pastimes of the Lord. And after that, you actually get a body in the pastimes of the Lord. When you actually enter the pastimes of the Lord, you get trained further there. You get attracted to the Lord steals the garments, then does the Ras Leela. When final connection happens, then he leaves you. You get into Viraha, and then in that Viraha, you completely develop absorption, start seeing the Lord constantly, and then you're transferred. Krishna comes back and transfers you back to the spiritual world. That's the entire progress as I understand it. But if it is that only in Bhava you see the Lord, maybe that's also correct, because beyond my realization. So I'm just going by what I've read.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking like that because my understanding is that it is only at the stage of Bhava where the Jiva receives Krishna's actual internal potency. Yes. And so for that reason, I would have thought that he wouldn't have been able to see any part of the Lord before he received that internal potency. But it seems like you're saying that you can see part of the Lord before we receive that internal potency at the stage of Bhava.
See, you're right. See, in the stage of Bhava, it becomes Sandarananda Visheshatma. The internal potency completely covers up the soul, and it forms a kind of a layer on top of the soul, Sandarananda Visheshatma. But the internal potency ray starts to shine first at the stage of Ruchi. So it's like the sun far away. The first ray starts to come. And in Asakti, it starts coming closer, and in Bhava, it completely wraps around you. That is one way. The other reason why I would believe this is possible is, I mean, I have no, if you ask me, please quote from the Shastras, I don't have a quote. But it is there in the Shishtastakam if you go deep. But the reason I would believe is the yogis who don't have Ruchi, who would not really gone into having devotional service, even they can see Paramatma at least in their heart. Dhyanavastita tadgadena manasa pashyanti yam yogino. So yogi was not even in devotional service completely, doesn't have the ahladini shakti.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And also the analogy that you were using in this context of the swan going all the way into the stem.
Yeah.
Can you just repeat that analogy, because I didn't really quite catch the analogy. The swan.
Swan. Yeah. Please go ahead. What's the question?
No. Can you just elucidate that analogy for me, please?
The swan is usually is Hamsa, and the saintly persons who are devotees are called Paramahamsa, the supreme swan. The reason why it is called so is there are many reasons, because there are many things to that analogy. The first part of the analogy is that a swan is different from a duck or a crane and so on and so forth. How is swan different from duck or a crane? Apart from the form, the ducks can be in dirty water, the cranes are in the dirtiest of water trying to fish, but the swan is usually in clear waters. If there is a swan, it will usually be in clear water. Swan never swim in dirty waters. That's the first characteristic. In fact, you can see a YouTube video of people throwing plastic bottles, and the swan goes there, picks the plastic bottle, and throws it back to them. It doesn't like any kind of muddling of the water from that point of view. So swan by characteristic is pure, and that's how they differentiate. They say that a crane appears like a yogi because he stands on one leg. The crane is completely focused. So the crane looks like a very top yogi, but the crane can only hold itself till it sees a fish. The moment it sees a fish, it will jump in. And then all his posture is broken. A swan, immaterial of it is very composed and swims about, and that's why it's like a royal swan you swim about. So it's in clear water, that's one. The second important characteristic is that you mix water and milk and give it to a swan, the swan will dip its beak, drink the entire milk, and the entire water will stay as it is. So it has that's a practical scientific ability that a swan has. So practically they compare it with the devotees, that in the most material of situation, they can just take the spiritual aspect and leave the material aspect. That's why they are called Paramahamsa. That is the second aspect of the comparison of the swan. And the third aspect is the swan, because it wants to eat the pollen grains from the stalk of the stem, or the juice from the stalk of the stem, it goes into a lotus flower and keeps on putting its neck deeper and deeper and deeper into the lotus flower, trying to go to the stalk to remove the juice. And they say that's like the pure devotees. They see the lotus feet of the Lord in the lotus flower in the heart. They keep putting their mind deeper and deeper and deeper into it till they are completely absorbed in the lotus feet, and they go from Asakti and then they go to Bhava. So by these three analogies, they talk about why the devotees are Paramahamsa, the supreme swan, from that point.
Yeah, very beautiful. And in the Shakshastakam, you made a correlation between that and the stage of Ruchi. Which verse refers to the Ruchi stage?
Both in the first verse, which is the general description, Shreyakairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam, where those stages are described. It describes the stage when it happens, and the actual verse of the Ruchi is Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim. I think is
four,
either
number four.
Four or five. What comes after 4? Na Dhanam Na Janam.
After Chanada P comes Na Dhanam Na Janam Na
Sundarim Kavitamba Jagadish Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmashwari Bhavatad Bhakti Hetuhi Tuhi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrasham Vichinte. That is, I think, if I'm not wrong, is Ruchi. Please put me as a dust on the lotus feet of your, put me as a dust particle in the lotus feet. of your life. And na dhanam, na janam, na suntari, I think, if I'm not getting this mixed up, is nishta, where you don't want, you're beyond anartha nivritti, you're past anartha nivritti, so you're not interested in dhanam, janam, sundarim, you're not interested in wealth, fame, and all of that. From that point of view.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. But I could be completely wrong in that, in between Baba and, I mean, these are things I don't know. I'm just read up something and I'm trying to act a bit knowledgeable, but otherwise don't know some of this. Yes.
Beautiful answers. Thank you.
Lalitangi Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat. Very, very beautiful class. The uniqueness of your classes, you make us think more and more deep, go deep into one topic, and then, we discover something. Thank you, Prabhuji. So my question is about this fixing up in the lotus feet of the Lord means basically starting to come close to the form of the Lord. So that comes after the Nama stage, right? Like we sing like Madhurya Leela, Guna Rupa, Nam. So after Nama is Rupa. But so, I mean, that means we have to be in the offenseless stage of the chanting, or when exactly that happens? Because practically I'm asking that, I mean, we are talking about fixing the mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, but even during chanting, the mind is running away. I mean, that's my condition. So just if you can link this.
All of us are facing the same thing because we are in Bhajana Kriya crossing Anartha Nivritti. And because there are so many millions of years of dust in the heart, those dust will fructify, and the consciousness, it is like pressure cooker, you know. You have the anartha heat happening and the pressure will go out. So naturally the mind will go out. That is anartha, that is Bhajana Kriya. That's why it's called Vaidhi Bhakti. We are forcibly trying to do bhakti by rules and regulation. We are not naturally raganuga. We are not inclined to it. We are not spontaneously inclined to it. But the more you hear and the more so consciousness sticking to the mind, the more holy name hits it, the adhesive will break, the consciousness will withdraw from the mind. They'll stick into the intelligence, more the holy name hits the intelligence, that adhesive will break, and then it gets beyond false ego and comes and resides in the heart. That is how chanting and hearing attentively helps in going beyond that circumstances of the mind going away to the mind being absorbed in hearing the holy name. And eventually, when the mind is absorbed in hearing the holy name, what happens is, typically like an old-time TV or a radio, you know, old time we used to have an antenna in the TV and used to tune the antenna, and the antenna used to start, when it is tuned, it used to catch the waves. You know, that's when this first stage, attention. If you read the 5 stages of chanting, the first stage is attention. It starts to catch the waves. And when the waves start happening, you see some grains on TV, you start some blurred images. You tune further and further and further. You hear some sound, and from the sound, it becomes an image. And then you tune the TV further, the image starts to play and it becomes a serial. You see the Guna. Then, and the serial starts to completely play out, then you see the pastime, you see the Leela, right? So the tuning of the antenna first gives you sound to image, to the characteristics of that image, Guna, and to the complete serial which keeps running, which is now, for all of that to happen, the antenna has to connect with the wave. That's the first stage of attention. To do that, the best way of doing that is to at least try and hear the first Hare. Bring the mind back to the first Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. At least keep bringing the mind back to the first Hare. That's one easy technique of how to make the mind and distinct here. Because we are in the initial stages, while we might believe we are 30, 40 years in the movement, and that is very good because externally we are doing a lot of service, because we have not learned to receive the Hare Krishna mantra and get it to hear the mind, the Anartha Nivritti is slightly slow, and we are not able to completely receive the next stage of Nam, Roop, Guna, Leela, right? So the first stage of attentive hearing And if you cannot attentively hear still, what do? You start following Ekadashi, reduce some food, trying to control the mind that way, or go to a retreat and spend 3-4 days in the dham, try and do that, or associate with devotees more, do the previous step more, sadhu sangha. The more you do sadhu sangha, the Bhajana Kriya improves, right? Either way, put yourself in circumstances where that absorption happens, goes in, right? And by doing so, your chanting will improve and you can get quickly from Nam to Rupa from there. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Really, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you repeat that? You said something about 16 rounds and you said something about 64 rounds. Can you repeat that sentence? You said that 64 rounds, if you do, then you're above Maya. And then 16 rounds that you do, that Prabhupada has said something about that. Can you repeat that sentence?
See, Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami Maharaj's standard was that he said anybody who does 64 rounds, I mean, when he said 64 rounds, he meant 64 rounds attentively, is above Maya, right? In the sense that Maya cannot easily catch it. And obviously, we know this famous conversations of Prabhupada with his disciples when they said, no, we can't do 64 rounds. So Prabhupada did not dilute that standard. What Prabhupada did is 16 rounds and 6 hours of service, which is equal to 8 hours, which is equal to 64 rounds. So if we follow Prabhupada's principle of 16 rounds and 6 hours of service, then Prabhupada, and especially if you do 16 rounds consistently, Prabhupada has said that you will always be protected. In fact, in his conversation with His Holiness Indradev Maharaj, when Indradev Maharaj says this often, when he one time, I think there's only one or two times he didn't do 16, he did 14 rounds. And the first thing that Prabhupada asked, as if he knew, was, did you do your 16 rounds? And he said, Prabhupada, I usually do, but last time I just at 14. Then he said, if you do 16 rounds, you will be protected by Krishna. Your whereabouts are known, where you are known. If you do less than 16 rounds, he said something like, where you are is not known. So it's not sure that you will be completely protected. You might be affected by Maya, but if you do 16 rounds consistently, then you have that protection that you will not fall down. 16 rounds and 4 regulative principle, Prabhupada has promised that you will not fall down. Right? So what I was trying to say is it's same as what Bhaktisiddhanta Goswami said. It has just been translated into a more practical way. It is in no way a dilution. So if we do our 16 rounds, we will completely be protected from Maya. That's what I was trying to say.
Thank you so much for repeating that. Now I understand. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Anybody has anything else? Otherwise, we could. I think this has become the longest class. I'm sure, sorry for that, but always happy to take questions. Okay.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Such a detailed and practical applications, and how do we be dedicated to the lotus feet of Lord. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone.
If you don't have any questions, maybe we can give pay our obeisance to Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the beautiful presentation. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo Thank you so much.
Leave with that one note of caution that some of the things which are said are way above my level of realization. So if I'm wrong somewhere, happy to know that. If there is a different understanding, always happy to receive that on WhatsApp or otherwise. I'm going by the best I've read, but that might not be always right unless you've actually realized that, which is my situation. So thank you for accommodating. Completely appreciate this class. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Such a wonderful class. You always give such deep and inspiring explanations. Thank you so much.
Dandavat, Radhe Radhe.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, very